Domestic law and international order. The police department and the armed forces are the two arms of the power structure, the muscles of control and enforcement. They have deadly weapons with which to inflict pain on the human body. They know how to bring about horrible deaths. They have clubs with which to beat the body and the head. They have bullets and guns with which to tear holes in the flesh, to smash bones, to disable and kill. They use force to make you do what the deciders have decided you must do. Every country on earth has these agencies of force. The people everywhere fear this terror and force. To them, it is like a snarling wild beast which can put an end to one's dreams. They punish. They have cells and prisons to lock you up in. They pass out sentences. They won't let you go when you want to. You have to stay put until they give the word. If your mother is dying, you can't go to her bedside to say goodbye, or to her graveside to see her lowered into the earth, to see her for the last time, swallowed up by that black hole. The techniques of the enforcers are many. Firing squads, gas chambers, electric chairs, torture chambers, the garrote, the guillotine, the tightening rope around your throat. It has been found that the death penalty is necessary to back up the law, to make it easier to enforce, to deter transgressions against the penal code. That everybody doesn't believe in the same laws is beside the point. Which laws get enforced depends on who is in power. If the capitalists are in power, they enforce laws designed to protect their system, their way of life. They have a particular abhorrence for crimes against property, but are prepared to be liberal and show a modicum of compassion for crimes against the person, unless, of course, an instance of the latter is combined with an instance of the former. In such cases, nothing can stop them from throwing the whole book at the offender. For instance, armed robbery with violence, to a capitalist, is the very epitome of evil. Ask any banker what he thinks of it. If communists are in power, they enforce laws designed to protect their system, their way of life. To them, the horror of horrors is the speculator, that man of magic who has mastered the art of getting something with nothing, and who in America would be a good member in standing of his local chamber of commerce. The people, however, are nowhere consulted, although everywhere everything is done always in their name and ostensibly for their betterment, while their real-life problems go unsolved. The people are a rubber stamp for the crafty and sly, and no problem can be solved without taking the police department and the armed forces into account. Both kings and bookies understand this, as do first ladies and common prostitutes. The police do on the domestic level what the armed forces do on the international level: protect the way of life of those in power. The police patrol the city, cordon off communities, blockade neighborhoods, invade homes, search for that which is hidden. The armed forces patrol the world, invade countries and continents, cordon off nations, blockade islands and whole peoples. They will also overrun villages, neighborhoods, enter homes, huts, caves, searching for that which is hidden. The policeman and the soldier will violate your person, smoke you out with various gases. Each will shoot you, beat your head and body with sticks and clubs, with rifle butts, run you through with bayonets, shoot holes in your flesh, kill you. They each have unlimited firepower. They will use all that is necessary to bring you to your knees. They won't take no for an answer. If you resist their sticks, they draw their guns. If you resist their guns, they call for reinforcements with bigger guns. Eventually, they will come in tanks, in jets, in ships. They will not rest until you surrender or are killed. The policeman and the soldier will have the last word. Both police and the armed forces follow orders. Orders. Orders flow from the top down. Up there, behind closed doors, in antechambers, in conference rooms, gavels bang on the tables. The tinkling of silver decanters can be heard as ice water is poured by well-fed, conservatively dressed men in horn-rimmed glasses, fashionably dressed American widows with rejuvenated faces and tinted hair, the air permeated with the square humor of Bob Hope jokes. Here, all the talking is done, all the thinking, all the deciding. Gray rabbits of men scurry forth from the conference room to spread their decisions throughout the city as news. Carrying out orders is a job, a way of meeting the payments on the house, a way of providing for one's kiddies. In the armed forces, it is also a duty, patriotism. Not to do so is treason. Every city has its police department. No city would be complete without one. It would be sheer madness to try operating an American city without the heat, the fuzz, the man. Americans are too far gone, or else they haven't arrived yet. The center does not exist, only the extremes. Take away the cops and Americans would have a coast-to-coast free-for-all. There are, of course, a few citizens who carry their own private cops around with them, built into their souls. But there is robbery in the land, and larceny, murder, rape, burglary, theft, swindles, all brands of crime, profit, rent, interest, and these blasé descendants of pilgrims are at each other's throats. To complicate matters, there are also rich people and poor people in America. There are Negroes and whites, Indians, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Jews, Chinese, Arabs, Japanese, all with equal rights but unequal possessions. Some are haves and some are have-nots. All have been taught to worship at the shrine of General Motors. The whites are on top in America, and they want to stay there, up there. They are also on top in the world, on the international level, and they want to stay up there, too. Everywhere, there are those who want to smash this precious toy clock of a system. They want ever so much to change it, to rearrange things, to pull the whites down off their high horse and make them equal. Everywhere the whites are fighting to prolong their status, to retard the erosion of their position. In America, when everything else fails, they call out the police. On the international level, when everything else fails, they call out the armed forces. A strange thing happened in Watts in 1965, August. The blacks, who in this land of private property have all private and no property, got excited into an uproar because they noticed a cop before he had a chance to wash the blood off his hands. Usually, the police department can handle such flare-ups, but this time it was different. Things got out of hand. The blacks were running amok, burning, shooting, breaking. The police department was powerless to control them. The chief called for reinforcements. Out came the National Guard, that ambiguous hybrid from the Twilight Zone, where the domestic army merges with the international. That hypocritical force, poised within America and capable of action on either level, capable of backing up either the police or the armed forces, unleashing their formidable firepower, they crushed the blacks. but things will never be the same again. Too many people saw that those who turned the other cheek in Watts got their whole head blown off. At the same time, heads were being blown off in Vietnam. America was embarrassed, not by the quality of her deeds, but by the surplus of publicity focused upon her negative selling points, and a little frightened because of what all those dead bodies on two fronts implied. Those corpses spoke eloquently of potential allies and alliances. A community of interest began to emerge, dripping with blood out of the ashes of Watts. The blacks in Watts and all over America could now see the Viet Cong's point. Both were on the receiving end of what the armed forces were dishing out. So now, the blacks, stung by the new knowledge they have unearthed, cry out, "Police brutality!" from one end of the country to the other. The new war cry is raised. The youth, those nodes of compulsive energy who are all fuel and muscle, race their motors, itch to do something. The Uncle Toms, no longer willing to get down on their knees to lick boots, do so from a squatting position. The black bourgeoisie call for citizens' review boards to assert civilian control over the activity of the police. In back rooms, in dark stinking corners of the ghettos, self-conscious black men curse their own cowardice and stare at their rifles and pistols and shotguns laid out on tables before them, trembling as they wish for a manly impulse to course through their bodies and send them screaming mad into the streets, shooting from the hip. Black women look at their men as if they are bugs, curious growths of flesh, playing an inscrutable waiting game. Violence becomes a homing pigeon floating through the ghettos, seeking a black brain in which to roost for a season. In their rage against the police, against police brutality, the blacks lose sight of the fundamental reality that the police are only an instrument for the implementation of the policies of those who make the decisions. Police brutality is only one facet of the crystal of terror and oppression. Behind police brutality, there is social brutality, economic brutality, and political brutality. From the perspective of the ghetto, this is not easy to discern. The TV newscaster and the radio announcer and the editorialist of the newspapers are wizards of the smokescreen and the snow job. What is true on the international level is true also at home, except that the ace up the sleeve is easier to detect in the international arena. Who would maintain that American soldiers are in Vietnam on their own motion? They were conscripted into the armed forces and taught the wisdom of obeying orders. They were sent to Vietnam by orders of the generals in the Pentagon, who received them from the Secretary of Defense, who receives them from the President, who is shrouded in mystery. The soldier in the field in Vietnam, the man who lies in the grass and squeezes the trigger when a little half-starved, trembling Vietnamese peasant crosses his sights, is only following orders, carrying out a policy and a plan. He hardly knows what it is all about. They have him wired up tight with the slogans of TV and the World Series, and he knows that he has been assigned to carry out a certain ritual of duties. He is well trained and does the best he can. He does a good job. He may want to please those above him with the quality of his performance. He may want to make sergeant or better. This man is from some hickey farm in Shit Creek, Georgia. He only knew whom to kill after passing through boot camp. He could just as well come out ready to kill Swedes. He would kill a Swede dead if he is ordered to do so. Same for the policeman in Watts. He is not there on his own. They have all been assigned. They have been told what to do and what not to do. They have also been told what they better not do. So when they continually do something in every filthy ghetto in this shitty land, it means only that they are following orders. It's no secret that in America the blacks are in total rebellion against the system. They want to get their nuts out of the sand. They don't like the way America is run from top to bottom. In America, everything is owned. Everything is held as private property. Someone has a brand on everything. There is nothing left over. Until recently, the blacks themselves were counted as part of somebody's private property, along with the chickens and goats. The blacks have not forgotten this, principally because they are still treated as if they are part of someone's inventory of assets, or perhaps in this day of rage against the cost of welfare, blacks are listed among the nation's liabilities. On any account, however, blacks are in no position to respect or help maintain the institution of private property. What they want is to figure out a way to get some of that property for themselves, to divert it to their own needs. This is what it is all about, and this is the real brutality involved. This is the source of all brutality. The police are the armed guardians of the social order. The blacks are the chief domestic victims of the American social order. A conflict of interest exists, therefore, between the blacks and the police. It is not solely a matter of trigger-happy cops, of brutal cops who love to crack black heads. Mostly, it's a job to them. It pays good, and there are numerous fringe benefits. The real problem is a trigger-happy social order. The utopians speak of a day when there will be no police. There will be nothing for them to do. Every man will do his duty, will respect the rights of his neighbor, will not disturb the peace. The needs of all will be taken care of. Everyone will have sympathy for his fellow man. There will be no such thing as crime. There will be, of course, no prisons, no electric chairs, no gas chambers. The hangman's rope will be the thing of the past. The entire earth will be a land of plenty. There will be no crimes against property, no speculation. It is easy to see that we are not on the verge of entering utopia. There are cops everywhere, north and south. The Negroes are the have-nots. They see property all around them, property that is owned by whites. In this regard, the black bourgeoisie has become nothing but a ridiculous nuisance. Having waged a battle for entrance into the American mainstream continually for 50 years, all of the black bourgeoisie's defenses are directed outward against the whites. They have no defenses against the blacks and no time to erect any. The black masses can handle them any time they choose, with one mighty blow. But the white bourgeoisie presents a bigger problem. Those whites who own everything. With many shackled by unemployment, hatred in black hearts for this system of private property increases daily. The sanctity surrounding property is being called into question. The mystique of the deed of ownership is melting away. In other parts of the world, peasants rise up and expropriate the land from the former owners. Blacks in America see that the deed is not eternal, that it is not signed by God, and that new deeds, making blacks the owners, can be drawn up. The black Muslims raised the cry We must have some land of our own, or else. Blacks in America shrink from the colossus of General Motors. They can't see how to wade through that thicket of common stocks, preferred stocks, bonds, and debentures. They only know that General Motors is huge, that it has billions of dollars under its control, that it owns land, that its subsidiaries are legion, that it is a repository of vast powers. The blacks want to crack the nut of General Motors. They are meditating on it. Meanwhile, they must learn that the police take orders from General Motors, and that the Bank of America has something to do with them, even though they don't have a righteous penny in the bank. They have no bank accounts, only bills to pay. The only way they know of making withdrawals from the bank is at the point of a gun. The shiny fronts of skyscrapers intimidate them. They do not own them. They feel alienated from the very sidewalks on which they walk. This white man's country, this white man's world, overflowing with men of color, an economy consecrated to the succor of the whites. Blacks are incidental. The war on poverty, that monstrous insult to the rippling muscles in a black man's arms, is an index of how many men actually sit down and plot each other's deaths, actually sit down with slide rules and calculate how to hide bread from the hungry, and the black bourgeoisie greedily sopping up what crumbs are tossed into their dark corner. There are 20 million of these blacks in America, probably more. Today, they repeat in awe this magic number to themselves. There are 20 million of us. They shout this to each other in humiliated astonishment. No one need tell them that there is vast power latent in their mass. They know that 20 million of anything is enough to get some recognition and consideration. They know also that they must harness their number and hone it into a sword with a sharp cutting edge. While General Motors also knows that the unity of these 20 million ragamuffins will spell the death of the system of its being, at all costs then they will seek to keep these blacks from uniting, from becoming bold and revolutionary. These white property owners know that they must keep the blacks cowardly and intimidated. By a complex communication system of hints and signals, certain orders are given to the chief of police and the sheriff, who pass them on to their men, the foot soldiers in the trenches of the ghetto. We experience this system of control as madness, so that Leonard Deadwyler, one of these 20 million blacks, is rushing his pregnant wife to the hospital and is shot dead by a policeman. An accident. That the sun rises in the east and sets in the west is also an accident, by design. The blacks are up in arms, from one end of America to the other. Blacks are outraged at this accident, this latest evidence of what an accident-prone people they are, of the cruelty and pain of their lives. These blacks at the mercy of trigger-happy Yankees and Rebs in coalition against their skin. They want the policeman's blood as a sign that the Viet Cong is not the only answer, a sign to save them from the deaths they must die and inflict. The power structure, without so much as blinking an eye, wouldn't mind tossing Bova to the mob to restore law and order, but it knows in the vaults of its strength that at all costs the blacks must be kept at bay, that it must uphold the police department, its guardian. Nothing must be allowed to threaten the setup. Justice is secondary, security is the byword. Meanwhile, blacks are looking on and asking tactical questions. They are asked to die for the system in Vietnam, and watch, they are killed by it. Now, they are asking each other, in dead earnest, why not die right here in Babylon fighting for a better life like the Viet Cong? If those little cats can do it, what's wrong with big studs like us? A mood sets in, spreads across America, across the face of Babylon, gels in black hearts everywhere.